So I wanted to go into a bit of an analysis about discs. This video is talking about why LEGO went out of their way to make sure that the collectibles from 2004 were kind of bad. Not really bad, I guess it's up to the eye of the beholder, of course, but rather that they weren't expensive. We'll talk about it. But there's a lot more that we're going to cover in this video because I also wanted to do a bit of a sort of unboxing, not really an unboxing, because we're going to take a look at a handful of bootleg masks here, and I've got a mock off to the side, so stay tuned for those. Those will be towards the end of the video, but of course, if you like this type of content, hi, I'm Skybird, just a random nerd who passionately talks about Bionicle on the internet, and if you like this type of content, make sure you like and subscribe. Really helps the channel out, helps us grow, and hey, who doesn't like growth, I guess? All right, without further ado, discs. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. No, this is not a Bionicle disc. This is a bootleg disc from Enlighten Masker. I'm not showing it off because I want to be like braggy about it. I moved my Kanoka disc bag for an experiment, and I have no idea where I put it. I also have no idea where my Krana or Krata are either, so that's fun. But we'll find them. Point being, I keep these in a separate bag, so I do know where these are. But for what it's worth, this is the exact same mold as LEGO's mold with the exact same glow-in-the-dark property. The only difference is the actual print on the cover. So it will still work for the sake of the video. Kanoka. What are collectibles? Well, when Bionicle originally started, it set a bit of a trend that was followed all the way up until 2007, actually, where you would have a handful of different types of sets on store shelves at the same time, different sizes of sets as well. You would have a canister set, a small Matoran or Taraga type set, and then you'd get a larger set like the Titans, the Rahi, etc. But to go along with all of these, you got the collectibles. Early on in Bionicle's run, these collectibles were in the form of masks, Krana, Krata. But the problem with that, at least the problem for LEGO with that, is the initial investment. Because here's the thing. LEGO didn't make those because they wanted to. They made those because they were in dire straits. Bionicle, in a lot of ways, was a saving grace for LEGO. They couldn't have expected it to be as powerful, as popular as it was, but it clearly was. And so, though it justified the first year having a plethora of new pieces in the form of these collectibles, mask packs offering 73 different masks out of them alone, not even including the misprints from Europe, then moving on with each year getting more and more ambitious with their collectibles, offering more and more items. At some point, LEGO decided they had to reel this in. And now I talk about it in a previous video, how the Borak Cal are essentially sort of a signifier in a lot of ways of what was to come for Bionicle, because the Borak Cal in and of themselves are a budget product. They're intended to be a budget product. Not for you or I, we bought them because we loved this franchise, sure, but for LEGO, they didn't cost a lot to produce because they didn't have any new molds. Yes, they had a decent amount of recolors to them, but even many of the recolors were not exclusive between them, only the windscreen with a different print, but the same base color, and of course the limbs being different colors. That was really it. Krana, of course, as well, but being a different material, being a cheaper plastic generally to work with, worked out in their favor. Why did they do this? Well, honestly, it was to kind of save face in a lot of ways. They needed to save money. They needed to hold back that money for investment into things like the Roxy, the Titans from 2003. It's clear that the budget from 2001 and 2002 was probably getting a bit out of hand for them, but it needed to. It needed to go big. It needed to knock it out of the park to really hold its place in the toy world, and it absolutely did so. But by 2003, Bionicle was a known quantity, and it didn't really need to put forward the same kind of investment. They already had us hooked. They didn't need anything highly coveted. They just needed something a little bit extra. 2004 was a little bit clever, at least on the marketing side, about this, by making the story centered around these Kanoka discs. Essentially, it was a quest for the discs instead of a quest for the masks. But why not masks? Clearly, you or I wanted masks far more than discs, and LEGO probably knew that, but there are a couple of problems that come forward with those Metru masks. First off, Metru masks are polypropylene, which is a softer material from the ABS that we knew before from the Toa Mata and Toa Nuva masks, but also a less forgiving plastic than things like the Krana or Krata, meaning that in transit they are more likely to get damaged. Not necessarily an, end all be all to this. It's definitely something that LEGO could address. Absolutely. And you can ask, well, what about the Metru Matoran masks? Those are a possibility, right? And that is true. But again, that's where we get to our second solution. Why else did LEGO not recolor masks? Because these discs only came in one color, glow in the dark. You see, this is the same mold with the same color. The only thing that changes between them is the print and the number on them. But for the sake of argument, let's just say the print. The number is a part of the print after all. This meant that LEGO could produce these pieces in mass, sell you 2 or 3 in one of these boxes, and, well, you're gonna pay for it because these are the collectibles after all. These are the things that the Toa are chasing after, and don't you want to be a Toa? Well, yeah, kind of. But they also know this isn't gonna sell as well as the Toa Mata mask would, or really any other collectible. Did they sell as well? I don't know, honestly. But I can imagine they probably didn't. LEGO was okay with that. Why? Well, let's be honest. Sales of any added value product are better than not having an added value product on the market at all, because at the end of the day, they're already producing these discs. Why not sell them on their own? And yes, there were exclusive items offered with these Kanoka discs packs in the form of the Matoran disc launcher. But remember, that launcher mold did exist already, so the only thing new here was the recolor of that piece. Could you consider that a collectible? Sure, absolutely. But one mold that gets recolored for a collectible, that's kind of devious if you think about it. And polypropylene generally is a little bit more affordable to work with than something like ABS. I don't know how affordable it is compared to the rubberized material that the Krana and Krata were made from, but I digress on that. At the end of the day, one polypropylene piece and a handful of ABS pieces shoved into a box are gonna make them at least a few dollars. And yeah, the argument still holds true. Couldn't the polypropylene launcher get damaged? I think so, sure. But I don't think it matters as much because we want our masks to be in pristine condition. I don't think we care quite as much about the weapons. Now, if someone got one in a box that was crushed or something, yeah, that's absolutely a quality control problem. I have no idea if that happened, and surely they would return that product, but that happens anyway. The thing is, this was the beginning of a new trend for Bionicle because every year going forward from this until 2007, the collectibles focused on, well, projectiles. In the first year, 2004, where projectiles were the focus, it made sense because they were involved with the story. And you could even make the argument in 2005 with the Rotuka spinners, those kind of made sense too, since certain spinners had specific powers. So like you could argue, okay, these colors have different powers and things, but again, the same mold, just with a handful of new colors involved. But then 2006 happens, and we get to the Zammer spheres. Now in this, we also get 3 new colors, but again, just one mold. And you'll start to notice something else too. With the Rotuka spinners, what else do you get with them? It's just spinners, no other pieces involved, and the recolors that are there are exclusive to this box. The same is also true for the Zammer spheres. There's nothing to launch them that comes with them. You don't get a Zammer launcher in the box or a build for one, not unless you attended a special event which was going on, but again, that was a different thing. 2007 gives us the squids, arguably the worst projectile, but still kind of cute little pieces of plastic. And sure, you have to pop them in your mouth and taste the fruity flavors or whatever, but still, we start to see a pattern here. We've begun reducing the amount of things that we're getting, right? In 2001, we go from having 72 different masks, plus the infected mask, plus all of the European misprints, but let's just exclude those for a moment, to what, 100 and something Krana to like 200 and something Krata, bring it back down a bit for the Borak Cal and the Nuva masks. But by 2004, suddenly we're getting a handful of discs with arbitrary numbers on them, and not all of the possible numbers were actually accounted for. You couldn't get discs with certain numbers on them, so even though it was implied that there were, 600 discs involved here, one for each village and 100 per village in terms of those double-digit numbers, there actually wasn't, right? They picked a handful of numbers. Those were what were included in the box, and you got to randomly sort through those. So there are a lot of blank spaces if you wanted to sort of display your Kanoka in any sort of sequential order. And that can be a bit bothering too, but again, that's just the reality we live in. So what was the purpose for this? It's all about saving money at the end of the day. And while I absolutely defend LEGO's decision to try and release the Borak Cal, I did a bit of an experiment, in fact, where I asked family members which Borak they preferred. And remember, my family is not into Bionicle. I believe I asked 9 people, but I can look again a bit later. And of those 9, only 2 preferred the original Borak with no context. And that shocked me because I honestly expected it to be a 50-50 split. Borak and Borak Cal. Maybe slightly having the Borak Cal eke out, since people tend to associate metallic colors with some kind of prominence. But yeah, I was surprised to see just how many went for the Borak Cal. I think it was over 9, in fact, too. So yeah, absolutely insane to think about. But it's because, as I've mentioned in the past, the Borak Cal are not a bad product. They're a bad follow-up. They're a bad thing in context to the information that we know. But if you show a kid a Borak and you show a kid a Borak Cal, they're probably as likely to pick one or the other, or I guess as my evidence may show, maybe even more likely to pick the silver one. And I would implore you to test this yourself, to be honest. Let me know the results down in the comments below. But my thoughts on this still remain. The Borak Cal opened up the budget for something like the Rakshi, something like Makuta, something like Puku, and did I say Takua? Makuta, Takua, Puku, Gaku, the Matoran from 2003, you get the point, right? In the same way, I could make at least some defense of the Vaki for doing this as well for the Toa Metru sets, offering up more slots, if you will, for unique pieces for those sets too, for better or worse, absolutely. But hopefully, the point is still coming across here. With all that said, let me go ahead and shift on over to those fancy bootlegs, because I got a package in the mail today. So, first things first, the mask that I showed at the beginning of this video, a dark tan version of the original Kanohi Hao. I do want to make it known that these Kanohi Hao are custom ABS injection molded pieces from Kinney over on AliExpress. I didn't buy these ones from Kinney specifically. I'll talk about that here in a moment, but you can go and get these right now from there, or you can get them also from the link that I will share in the description below. That said, I got these ones from Ziontyros, who went out of his way to buy them in bulk as well to offer them here in the US. Really, really affordable too. $1.80 per mask. It's insane how they're able to do this. But with that said, the mold mark on these is moved from the center of the mouth to the top edge here. It is visible. Not so visible on this one here. At least it's not showing up on this camera. Yeah, you can kind of see it right there. But some of them definitely more visible than the other. Is that something that bothers me? Nah, not really. I think it's something that's very easy to look past, but let me go ahead and actually show you all the masks that I got. So dark tan here, which is bar none a perfect match for Legos, maybe ever so slightly more saturated than Legos, but well within Legos tolerance levels. I would call this a success. Moving on to sand green. Yeah, another really fantastic color too. This one is also a really wonderful representation of Lego's color too. Again, maybe ever so slightly more saturated, but you have to remember that these are made with ABS plastic that is not from Lego. The fact that this is able to match so remarkably close. Weirdly enough, on camera, this appears darker. I find that kind of interesting because that's definitely not the case. But yeah, within Lego tolerance for sure. Moving on to the next one, we have lime green, which again, I am going to say well within Lego's tolerance. This is a pretty old piece, 2001, whereas this piece is from, well, you know, at least the last year or two. And I would say it's maybe ever so slightly more saturated again, but Lego's lime has changed quite a lot through the years. So it's definitely possible that it could be close still to one of Lego's newer limes. That said, the one that is definitely the furthest from original is going to be this one right here. This orange, not only is it more translucent, letting light through, as you can see there, but it's not quite a perfect match for Lego's orange. It's a little bit brighter. I knew that going in when I got the piece, and it's possible that this is something that has been addressed since I bought this from Ziontyros and he bought his supply, I believe, over a year ago at this point. So, you know, there's been time since then. That said, I also got this as a freebie from Zion. This one has a little bit of a defect in it, which I think is actually kind of cool, but you may not enjoy that. So he's really good at sorting this kind of stuff out, which is probably why he gave it to me for free. And he's just generally a pretty a generous person in that way as well. But this one is transparent brown. It's really just a perfect match for Legos, but mine has a very slight gold sparkle on the side here. It's a little hard to see. You can kind of pick it up. Yeah, right there. You can kind of see it there. It's very easy to ignore. You got to catch the light on it just right to even see it. And honestly, if that had been a feature, like if that had been mixed in, oh, it would look so cool. Obviously, it was not intentional. It was just miscleaning the machine whenever that piece was produced. And on top of that, 2 more pieces to show off this one right here, the gunmetal Krakan. Actually, this one is not gunmetal. This one is metallic titanium, which is Lego's modern gunmetal color. If you don't know, LEGO switched this color back in 2010, technically beforehand, but officially in 2010, and so it is a match for modern gunmetal. But I have been made aware that Kinney now makes the older version of gunmetal for this mask too. So if you want one that matches Makuta from 2003, you want to go for the old version of gunmetal, or I guess warm gunmetal. And if you want one that matches modern gunmetal colors, if you're building with parts from the last 10, 15 years, you might want this color here, which is metallic titanium, but I think on their website it's going to be marked as cool gunmetal or cool metallic dark gray, somewhere along those lines. And lastly, as a freebie, before we get into the mock, I was also gifted this, and this one's important. I made a video about this that you guys really seem to enjoy, but just to cover my bases here, trans purple Borak eyes. I recommend this over LEGO's original. It's just better in every way. I am in the lucky I have the privilege, rather, of owning the original trans purple Borak eyes from the Shadow Strike set. This is better. It is a more saturated, more pure purple that is much easier to tell, honestly easier to see light through as well, so it shines a bit better. And it's a warmer purple too, which I prefer. But since I own trans purple from LEGO, I have compared it to like colors, like trans dark blue. And it's honestly so close, but the price difference is insane because those trans purple eyes for a while got up to like $50 a pair. I don't think they're quite that expensive today, but they're still kind of expensive. And this was 10 cents a piece. Go for this every day of the week. You will not be upset about it. And if you buy those for $50 and then you see these, I think you'll regret buying those other ones. Axle connection is good, maybe a little bit more stiff than Legos, which I prefer, honestly, because I'd much rather it be tight than loose. And yeah, they're fantastic pieces. No hard edges on them, no flashing on them. They look very professional. And the mold mark is perfectly covered on the back as well. They're fantastic pieces. Lastly, before I end the video, I mentioned talking about a mock here. Let me go ahead and showcase that. I'm going to put the disc in its mouth because the whole reason that I made this video in the first place was my analysis on the Vaki sets. And so I wanted to make my own version of the Vaki. This is where I'm at so far. Is it perfect? No, absolutely not. There are definitely some things I still want to work on, but I'm pretty happy with it. First things first, got the tri-jointed legs, digitigrade legs, whatever you want to call them, just because that's how they're shown in the movie, so I wanted to be more accurate. Plus, I always wanted the Vaki to have colored feet, not dark gray feet, so that gives you that extra set of joints and, alternates the colors like the Vaki tend to do. On top of that, obviously you have actual wrist joints in the arms, just using Avmatoran limbs, which, yes, I know are not the ideal choice here, but they work well enough for me, and mine aren't broken, so I'll take it, right? But still preserves the function on the side here, being able to turn the arms a little bit less because of the way I built certain aspects of it. No big deal. But the best part about it, in my opinion, was the replacement of that top assembly here for something that is double jointed so that when I want to turn the model's head, I can. Watch. I'll do it in a very clunky way so I can have this awkward silence in the video that I won't cut. I'm joking. But the legs are a bit longer, so the model has the ability to stand up taller. Obviously, it has wrists in it now. It's a very simple mod, but even better because I don't really like how high the head sits, although I still think this looks better than Legos did. You have the ability to lower the head as well, bring it further forward, which just looks better. And it gives you 3 of these pieces too, which is kind of cool because you have one in the front. Build for that, I think, is pretty straightforward, just using a Hordika neck on the back here. Nothing to cap this off, and I'm using friction pins on the bottom that are white just because why not? Hordika necks on the side here, and then Avmatoran arms. That's essentially it. The only other thing I change is a socket in here from the Product set and just attach 2 of these torso pieces via an axle right through the center hole in it. That's literally the entire build right there. And then, yeah, just those legs. And I think I hit the microphone too. All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure, again, to leave a like and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. Really love these analysis videos too. I have a lot of fun making them. And this one's definitely a little more silly than some of the others. But hey, I don't mind. So if you guys did enjoy this one, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What is your favorite collectible from Bionicle? Actually, 2 questions. What's your favorite collectible from Bionicle? And then what is your favorite projectile that was released in a collectible pack? AKA, actually, I'll just make it easier for you. What's your favorite collectible and what's your favorite mask? Easier answer there. If you want to take the conversation further, though, if you want to answer the harder question, I guess, then you can go ahead and check out the Discord, Instagram, or Patreon, all of which are linked in the description below. And again, don't worry, Ziontyros' website will be linked down in the description below. No, I'm not sponsored or anything. He just sends these with his packages. And as always, you can also check out Kenny's store over on AliExpress, which hopefully I'll remember to put in the description as well. All right, guys, take care.